Can you hear back there now?
Yes.
Is that as high as we can go? People out up front.
It's okay. It's
Is that better? Better? Okay. I'm going to tell you, I want you to think about this while we talk. And halfway through, I'm going to ask you what you think this means. It's a huge number, so be thinking about that. Good evening, and thank you for coming here. My name is Dee Wells Arnold, and I'm speaking on behalf of Washington County for Safe Drinking Water. This group is working diligently to inform and engage the citizens of Washington County in the pursuit of safe drinking water for everyone. I also want to acknowledge Living in Democracy, who invited our group to join their group to meet with the water authorities, and we've been meeting every month to discuss water issues. Thank you, Betsy. Tonight marks an unprecedented moment for Washington County. A total of 9 different entities serving communities across our county, including 5 independent water boards, 2 townships, and a village are standing together with the city of Marietta, united by a single responsibility to protect the drinking water that sustains our families, our farms, our communities, and our future. Washington County has long been pro-industry community, but we know what can happen when safety and accountability fail. The DuPont C8 PFAS, or forever chemicals, contamination of drinking water is a painful reminder of what it means when communities are told they are safe and later learn that they were not. Now, toxic radioactive oil and gas waste is being injected near those same drinking water sources. This should be a concern to all of us deeply, no pun intended. The oil and gas wastewater, commonly known as the industry-derived misnomer brine, can contain thousands of various chemicals, surfactants, PFAS compounds, heavy metals such as lead, cadmium, and arsenic, which can cause developmental delays in children, have reproductive impacts, and cancer. There is extremely high salt content, sand, radium-226, radium-228, which are cancer-causing radioactive isotopes and do not disappear overnight. Radium-226 fires off radiation for more than 1,600 years. These alpha radiation particles can't be removed from one's body ever. The body sees this radiation like calcium and incorporates it into the bones. So you can imagine what it could do to children as their cells are in a state of rapid metabolic overdrive as they grow and develop. Each day, thousands of gallons of various brine, waste concoctions, are being injected under our feet in Washington County. Dr. Catherine Helm Clark, a geologist who has studied this issue, has stated that this brine waste is being injected into, quote, low permeability formations that can rapidly elevate subsurface pressures, These pressures may exceed thresholds that reopen fractures or reactive faults, enabling brine to migrate far from its injection site. End of quote. Thousands of gallons of this radioactive waste is being hauled to Deep Rock Disposal Solutions facility on Route 7, located near the old Shelley and Sands. The radioactive waste is coming in daily by trucks, and the industry intends to begin bringing waste in via train car and barge. Think of what the consequences could be if a brine truck is in an accident on the highway or spills its content on a street near a school or downtown. Think about a train car derailment like the travesty that happened in East Palestine. What would be the ramifications if a barge hits a pier and the radioactive contents of the vessel were lost in the Ohio River? These types of accidents have all happened elsewhere, and it's jarring to realize it could happen here. The exciting Marietta Levy Park being built and funded by a $9.4 million grant through the Ohio Appalachian Community Grant Program. Park could seriously be jeopardized if there were a barge accident spilling radioactive waste. Unfortunately, due to federal exemption, the various types of vessels carrying the waste are not even labeled or considered hazardous. The industry has enjoyed loopholes for decades because of one single reason. It would hurt their bottom line if they were to properly label this toxic radioactive waste. Our next speaker is Hillary Royce.
Hello, I'm Hillary Royster. I'm from Washington County for Safe Drinking Water. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's very inspiring. We're very excited to see you all here. Okay. Washington County has been forced to accept enormous volumes of toxic radioactive brine waste, and that's not just from fracking operations in Ohio, but from surrounding states that have more restrictive regulations. We'd like to share some staggering facts with you all. First, let's compare it to our neighbors. How many Class 2 wells do they have? Pennsylvania has 18, West Virginia 27, Ohio 232. To help put that in perspective, Washington County alone has about the same number of Class 2 injection wells as the entire state of Pennsylvania. About 50% of the waste injected into Ohio is from out of state. ODNR reports that since 2010, there have been over 2.8 billion gallons, that's over 4,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools, of toxic radioactive waste injected here in Washington County. Locally, if these numbers weren't staggering enough, 2 additional Class 2 wells were recently permitted by the ODNR, and a Class 1 well has been applied for by Deep Rock. If all of these wells were operable, that would be a total of 7 injection wells that would be within 2 miles of Marietta's source water protection area. In total, that could be 1.4 million gallons per day of toxic waste being injected under our feet. This isn't just Marietta's aquifers at risk. This area also serves 4 aquifers, including Warren and Williamstown, West Virginia, which totals over 32,000 people. The Ohio EPA regulates Class 1 wells. Class 1, quote-unquote, non-hazardous wells inject exceptionally large amounts of chemicals and manufacturing waste, and it is important to note that the term non-hazardous is a legal definition. It is not based in health. There are various forms of commercial industrial waste injected by these Class 1 wells. including landfill leachate, industrial process wastewater, contaminated groundwater, soil remediation fluids, and we also have municipal wastewater from treatment plant residuals, and there's more. I want you all to think about East Palestine, Ohio. Some of the water from the cleanup of those derailed train cars went to a Class 1 well in Coshocton, Ohio. There are only 16 active Class 1 wells in the state, and most of these are located in Northwest Ohio, and that is because of their favorable geology. There has only been one Class 1 well granted in Southeast Ohio, and it failed. Washington County does not deserve to be a guinea pig for Class 1 wells. You have to think about the proposed Waterford data center. Would waste from that proposed data center, such as battery fluid from the lead acid and lithium ion batteries, refrigerants and cooling systems, ITE waste, cleaning chemicals, and other things be disposed of just 2 miles from our drinking water? The Ohio EPA could issue a draft permit for this Class 1 well anytime now. If a draft permit does occur, it's important for everyone here in this area to attend that hearing. We are hoping it doesn't get that far because in September, over 200 people attended an EPA meeting at Marietta High School to show their disfavor, which is important. If we look beyond, what could happen if there is a catastrophic accident like we talked about with truck, rails, or barge? The scientific and regulatory record shows that injection well failures, leaks, induced seismicity, also meaning earthquakes, communication with oil and gas production wells, and migration events, they are documented realities, they are not theoretical thoughts. There are numerous examples of incidents like this happening. In fact, 7 injection wells have failed in Southeast Ohio, and 6 of them have been shut down. I would like to clarify that those 6 wells that have been shut down, they've been in Southeast Ohio. Right here in Washington County, the Redbird injection well failed. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources Division of Oil and Gas is the regulatory body that oversees injection of oil and gas waste in the state. We did a public records request for samples taken from the American Growers injection well along Route 7. And guess what? There's only been 1 sample taken by ODNR in 5 years. How can ODNR verify what's being injected? How is 1 sample in 5 years sufficient enough to ensure our safety?
Clean water is not an optional infrastructure. Every household, every school, every hospital, business, and farm in our county depends on clean drinking water. For this reason, the following entities have passed and signed resolutions asking for a moratorium on injection wells. Warren, Putnam, Little Hocking, Highland Ridge, and Tri-County Water Boards, along with Muskegon Township and the Village of Beverly and the City of Marietta, all of whom are represented here tonight. Water authorities, would you mind raising your hands? Tonight, we have 6 speakers to discuss why a moratorium is needed. I would like to introduce our first speaker, Marietta's own City Council President, Susan Vessels, and she deserves a round of applause.
Thank you, Dee. I'm serving now in my 7th year on City Council. And in that time, I received quite an education on what it takes to run a city. Roads, zoning, police and fire, lands, buildings, and parks, and water and sewer. Last July, I arrived early for a planning and zoning committee meeting. Because I was early, I accidentally, unintentionally, sat through a separate water and sewer committee meeting. At that meeting, Dee Arnold of Washington County for Safe Drinking Water and Beth Reed of Buckeye Environmental spoke about 2 pending permits to drill injection wells just outside the city. At that time, I had no idea what an injection well was, and similarly, the rest of the city council was unfamiliar. In the following days, I started reflecting on what Bev and Dee had softly and simply shared. It was during the council's July 17th regular meeting that it occurred to me that I should schedule a committee of the whole with the sole purpose of educating the council on injection wells. In preparation for that meeting, I invited the county commissioners, our state representative and senator, experts from Ohio EPA, ODNR, petroleum engineers, a licensed geologist, oil company owners, and water superintendents. 11 speakers were scheduled. At the time, I had no idea who Bob Wilson and Bob Lane were, and I failed to invite them. But they showed up, as did over 100 members of the community, and we learned a lot. By the time that first meeting happened, a 5-day notice had been published in the Marietta Times on a third pending permit for an injection well near Marietta, the Stephen number 1 well. The notice application was filed in accordance with the expired Ohio administrative rules, which required that any comment filed on the Stephen well had to be received within 15 days of notice completion. At the very end of our committee of the whole, Councilor O'Neill made a motion that I draft a comment and objection letter on the Stephen application on behalf of our city. So, as tasked, within 9 days, I completed a letter on behalf of the city. It was signed by 9 elected officials, 5 Republicans and 4 Democrats. The letter was supported with 28 exhibits, including 6 ODNR orders, an ODNR study, and 4 affidavits. The letter asked ODNR for 3 things. First, enforcement of the current version of the Ohio Administrative Code Section 15019 when considering the permit application. It asked for denial of the permit application altogether for reasons of public health, safety, and good conservation practices. And 3, it asked for a public meeting on the application. I am told that our response was the first time that a city has ever mobilized within 15 days to timely file such a letter. Despite the city's request for a public hearing, and without the courtesy of notifying the city, ODNR issued the permit to drill the Stephen number 1 well on August 28th. We learned about the permit being issued only after an ODNR database search on September 3rd. There was no offer of a public hearing prior to the issuance. The issue then became, what do we do next? City Law Director Bertram decided to file a notice of appeal and request for a stay of execution with the Ohio Oil and Gas Commission. This was accomplished on September 22nd within the 30-day appeal window. I called the Ohio Oil and Gas Commission this afternoon. Over 5 months later, the appeal has yet to be set by the commission for an evidentiary hearing, which is a hearing on the merits. At the time the Oil and Gas Commission appeal was filed, the council began working on a resolution to allow the city to file a writ of mandamus in the Franklin County Common Pleas Court to force the Ohio Department of Natural Resources to follow the law. A writ of mandamus is a tool whereby citizens can utilize the courts to force state agencies to follow state law. A basic thing that you need to know, this could be on a bar exam. I passed the Ohio bar after graduating from the Moritz College of Law in 2003, is that it is long settled law requires that the law applied to the review of a permit application is a law in existence at the time of the permit review, and not the law in existence at the time of the filing of the application. In approving the second well application to drill, ODNR applied the law in existence prior to 2022, even though the review of the application occurred in 2025. About the same time that we were working on the writ of mandamus resolution, at the suggestion of Councilor Mike Scales, we also started working on a moratorium resolution. The purpose of the moratorium resolution was to get the attention of our state level leaders so that they may decide to help us. The city's moratorium resolution summarized dangers the city was facing, including, first, all of Ohio's failed Class 2 injection wells are located in Southeast Ohio, and all of those wells were permitted and regulated under the expired rules. 2, the pending Class 1 permit is proposed for the Oriskany sandstone, a formation that has never before been used for a Class 1 well. 3, waste from injection wells in Washington County is migrating to the surface from intended injection zones, with migration in Washington County found over 5 miles from the point of injection. 4, ODNR and Ohio EPA have failed to explain why the presence of PFHXA and PFHPA, which are cracked fluid stabilization chemicals, appear in the Williamstown tap water, and why it is not evidence of communication between an injection well and an aquifer. And since 2023, according to ODNR's own database, seismic activity in Washington County has increased almost 20 times over, an indication that rock formations claimed to be retaining the injected wastewater deep underground are moving and likely fracturing. The city's moratorium resolution, after summarizing these types of risks, and it wasn't limited to those 5, asked state leaders to enact legislation that would do all of the following 4 things. First, stop the permitting of all new injection wells in Washington County for a period of 3 years. Stop the importing of out-of-state waste or injection in Washington County for a period of 3 years. Stop all current injection of waste within 6 miles of Marietta's aquifer, and require a full study of brine migration within Washington County. The city passed its amended moratorium resolution on October 9th unanimously. On October 24th, Mayor Schlichter and I personally delivered to the State House and Wright Tower copies addressed individually to the governor, all state senators, and all state representatives. The city's efforts in this regard have yet to be acknowledged by our state leadership. We did not receive so much as a single letter or phone call in response from the governor, a single letter or phone call in response from a state representative, or a single letter or phone call in response from a state senator. But what did happen is individuals from the water districts, initially organized by Betsy Cook and her group Living Democracy, Engaging Citizens, they stepped up. Living Democracy, Engaging Citizens has a mission to inform and educate people in the Mid-Ohio Valley about how government works on the local, state, and federal levels. Mrs. Cook explains, we help citizens learn to become involved so that our democracy may work better. Mrs. Cook started speaking with local leaders and representatives from our county water districts about also filing moratorium resolutions like the one that the city of Marietta did at the state level. And of course, that is why we're here this evening preparing for the delivery of a total of 9 unique moratorium resolutions from Washington County Political Subdivision. I am told that this is the first time that representatives from our water districts have ever met with the goal of working across jurisdictions to protect water. It is an extraordinary thing, and it is truly living democracy and engaging citizens. So thank you to everyone that has so far participated in this extraordinary effort to protect our water from what I personally consider is the malfeasance of a state agency that so far refuses to follow the most basic civil procedure law, and to protect us from the unacceptable consequences of continuing to inject waste without consideration of proximity to aquifers by an industry desperate to continue with the status quo. All evidence points to the fact that the status quo is no longer safe and thus no longer acceptable in Washington County. Thank you to everyone here in support of this.
Next, we have Steve Hutchinson, who's from Warren Water Board, and he has been very influential. Their group is the first group that brought this to my attention last, was it March, April, May? April. And boy, did we have a good turnout at Warren High School. The very first meeting I think we ever had. But you have a lot to do with that. Thank you. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Hutchinson. I'm a trustee for the Warren Water Association. First thing I'd like to do is all board members of the local water associations, please stand up. Two or three people here from Warren Water as well. And Dee is correct. I'm going to go back just a little ways and give a little bit of history. There's going to be a lot of technicalities thrown out here, but I kind of, for the people that don't know or haven't been informed of how this all got started, approximately a year ago, there was a group I'm a part, another group I'm a part of, and I started hearing stories about contamination in wells, which at that time the main focus was PFAS and C8. Well, C8 caused me to dig just a little deeper, and C8 then became the focus for what we're the brine water we're facing now. I approached my board members about not only giving information to our 2,500 customers of Warren Water, but the entire county if possible. That's what prompted the first meeting at Warren High School. We had about 160 to 170 attendees, and the first people I reached out to for that meeting was Roxanne Groff and Wendy Sheard, two ladies that I had met the previous fall, and I became interested in this situation because of them. The first meeting, like I said, there was about 160, 170 people. Out of that meeting, Warren Water did get an invite to meet with the High Department of Natural Resources Division of Oil and Gas. They invited us for a meeting. Yes, we sat down. Yes, there were many questions. But the one thing that came out of that meeting that the people really need to know is Eric Vendel, Chief of Oil and Gas, and no one at the EPA can tell us for certain that our water can never be contaminated. Now think about that. They are not certain that our water can never be contaminated by injection wells. That's one of the biggest takeaways I've had through this whole process. Mr. Chavez was the owner of Deep Rock Disposal. Mr. Chavez lives in the area. I would like to see him attend one of these meetings and give us his opinion and tell what he's going to do if something does happen. The thing is, this is a money-driven market. We all know that. That's what it's all about. And when it comes to money, people do things that they really shouldn't. So I would like to see more more support from our county commissioners. I personally have never seen Mr. Blaze or Mr. Schilling at one of these meetings. I would like to see them come and answer some questions for everyone sitting here in this audience. We all have questions. And we would really like to see them step up with the people of Washington County. I'm going to make this short. I'm just giving a little brief history here as how everything got started. So now we know I met Beth Reed with Buckeye Environmental through this. I met Roxanne Groff, who, as far as I know, she knows more about injection wells than anyone I've ever met. And out of this, Marietta City Council has stepped up and got involved, and now we have Washington County for Safe Drinking Water. So I think we're on the right track here. The pressure's on. We can't quit. We have to keep going because Columbus is listening to us. They certainly are. And again, I'd like to finish with the ODNR could not guarantee us that our wells cannot, our aquifers cannot become contaminated. That promise does not exist. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The start of it all. We need Little Hocking Board Member Bob Allen. And I want to mention too that John Rao, who is president of Little Hocking Water Board, is running for county commissioner.
Thank you, Dave. I am Bob Allen with Little Hocking Water Association. I'm the treasurer and trustee. We also have John here. We have our general manager, John Smith, our assistant general manager, Eddie Richardson. And we have a great deal of experience dealing with contamination, unfortunately. We are the epicenter of C8 and forever chemicals. On one side of our well field, we have the source of contamination for forever chemicals, and approximately 1 mile on the other side of our well field, we have injection wells, which we're greatly concerned about, and we have objected to ODNR at every opportunity we have had. I want to share that we serve a population of almost 10,000 people, so it's a significant population which would be negatively affected if that contamination should get in our well fields. The concerns we have is, much of this has already been said, but proximity to our well field, 1 mile, and the volume being pumped into the ground. In addition to that, recently, ODNR has issued a violation for the injection pressures. A stay was granted, and so they are continuing to pump, as far as I understand it, in excess of the pressure they were permitted to pump. That is a great concern to us as well. We have had great concerns forever on both the injection wells and the forever chemicals. I can tell you from dealing with the forever chemicals, the treatment costs are unbelievable. We have to change our filters at least 4 times a year, I think, John, and I think that's $120,000 each time we change filters. And we can't afford that. Fortunately, we're receiving some assistance in that. The other thing we're concerned about, if the injection well fluids get into our well field, the nearest aquifer that we have located is for approximately 16 miles from our current well field. So we would have to develop a new well field. We would have to have 16 miles of raw water transmission line, the pump stations, and all the other items that's needed for that. And we anticipate that cost to be in excess of $50 million. Again, we're a relatively small water system. We can't afford that, neither can our water customers, and we will continue to object to ODNR and the injection wells in our area, and we have been doing that since they started the Arrowhead well. Every opportunity we've had, again, we've objected to it, and ODNR has not accommodated our concerns and have moved forward with the injection. Thank you.
What a voice. Jay Huck is our next person for Muskingum Township trustee. And Jay was brave enough to be on film for our December 16th event. You know, it's difficult to step up and do this when you've got a lot of oil and gas people in.
Yeah.
It's difficult, and we really needed Jay, and Jay did it. And we thank you, Jay. Come on up, Jay.
Okay. I should stick to the script.
You do what you know.
You got 5 minutes.
Being a lifelong resident of Muskingum Township, this is just north of Marietta. And being in the water industry for 35 years on that, but being a part of the township for 37 years in one capacity as another. So I'm greatly concerned about our drinking water also. I'm here today on behalf of the Muskingum Township trustees. And we represent a community of about 4,500 residents. And they all rely on an aquifer along the Muskingum River for their drinking water. The same aquifers that Marietta and Warren use. And protecting that water supply is our most fundamental responsibility. So, but don't say, we do respect the role that the oil and gas industry play in Ohio's economy. But we cannot ignore the growing volume of waste, and much of it from out of state, that's being injected into wells located dangerously close to the aquifers that serve the city of Marietta, Warren Community Water, Highland Ridge Water, which receives its water supply from Warren Water, and Putnam Community Water, serving the Davola community. So we know that 4 injection wells already operate just outside of Marietta, and some that are within 2.5 miles of these water sources. And despite formal requests from local governments and local water systems, ODNR recently approved another injection well permit without ever holding a public hearing. I want to say the risks are very clear. Every failed Class 2 injection well in Ohio is in southeast Ohio. And these injection wells were permitted under outdated rules. Wastewater, brine, has migrated more than 5 miles from these injection zones. Seismic activity in Washington County has increased 24-fold since 2023. And now, a Class 1 disposal well is being proposed here in Washington County into a rock formation that has never been used for that purpose in our state. So that is why Muskingum Township has adopted a resolution calling for 4 targeted actions. We're asking for a 3-year pause on new injection well permits, a 3-year halt on importing out-of-state waste, a stop to injection activity within 6 miles of our aquifers, and a full study of brine migration in Washington County. These are reasonable, temporary safeguards designed to protect essential drinking water infrastructure, while giving the state time to gather the scientific data needed for responsible long-term policy. A contamination event would be irreversible and devastating for our communities. That's why we're asking our governor, our state legislatures, and their leadership, for their leadership and swift action to prevent a preventable crisis and to protect the most essential resource our residents depend on every day. We cannot wait for a defining event. And a defining event is when we react. We have to react now before something happens. So on behalf of the State of California, we call for our resolution to send to the governor. We're asking the governor to listen to us and not pay us, to forget about us out here. We are tired of being forgotten about.
Yes.
Okay.
At this time, we would like all the water boards and the entities, township people, those of you that have signed this, to come forward to the podium. We will have you sign the letter, the cover letter, that's going to go to Governor DeWine, and we want the media. Chase. He's great. Come on up and take pictures of these people. They deserve a picture. Hopefully it'll be in the paper. And while they do that, we're going to talk about this number. You can tell I'm a teacher. Never is. So, water board people, township people, come on up. Sign this letter to Susan. We're going to take a picture over here, and while you do that, we're going to talk about this number. Okay? Does anybody? Come on, guys. Bring your resolutions, bring your moratoriums, sign with Susan. There you go. Okay. Does anybody have any idea what 769,669,972 gallons stands for? Anybody? Anybody want to say what they think it is? Yeah.
1 month.
1 month of what? Well,
Injection.
anybody else have an idea what this number stands for? I was astounded to find this out. 7,889,669,972 stands for the gallons, stands for the amount of toxic brine waste that has been put in our ground from Deep Rock Solutions through 2024.
Deep Rock.
From Deep Rock. That will be considered 1,196 Olympic-sized swimming pools of toxic brine waste that's under our feet, that they hope doesn't leave where it's supposed to be, and within 2 miles of our aquifers. Now, on top of that, there are 2 more wells that have been permitted, but they haven't started doing it yet, maybe because of us. And there's a level 1, class level 1, that is also being reviewed by the Ohio EPA. So that would be even more than this number. And I find that startling.
When did Deep Rock start putting?
Well, they started doing these injection wells in 2015. So, maybe 2015. I don't know exactly. But it's a lot of toxic brine waste that we didn't ask for. This is our town. These are our communities. We should have a say in what goes into our ground. And I don't think companies and corporations should be allowed to come in here and do what they're doing and destroying what we have.
And from out of state.
And that number doesn't include 2025 or 2026, right?
That's just deep rock.
We need a new state house.
The photographs on taped to the two doors in the back are Deep Rock Solutions, they're Deep Rock Solutions port where they are emptying the brine and pumping it into the wells. They run 24/7, 7 days a week, every day of the month.
Yep.
You can see them back here, night and day.
Over by Rinky.
And on Christmas Day, Steve and I were heading out of town to go visit our kids, and we saw 2 vehicles heading to be dumped. So we're talking every day. And we have a neighbor who lives in Bramblewood Heights. She saw 19 brine trucks in one day. 19.
That's just a small bit of it.
So, okay, I think we're ready to move on. Thank you for staying and not leaving. We still have some really important people to talk. Excuse me. The next person, yeah, Hillary. I'm going to continue on where they sign. So once again, I'm Hillary from Washington County for Safe Drinking Water. Some industry lobbyists will tell you that injection wells in Ohio never leak. Well, our lived reality in ODNR's own documents will tell you otherwise. Every single injection well failure that we know of in Ohio, documented by ODNR, that has failed, has been in southeast Ohio. ODNR allows problems with injection wells to fester for far too long. For example, it took them 13 years to shut down the Deep Rock-owned Noble County injection wells, and that was even after a $1.2 million environmental disaster that happened due to brine waste coming to the surface via an oil gas well. Also, that environmental disaster didn't stop. It self-happened after that. Wells have been suspended due to unprecedented migration of brine in Washington, Athens, and Nobles County, sometimes up to 5 miles away. We have a list of wells that have failed due to brine migration, have been suspended by ODNR, or that have had other issues. In fact, just about every single injection well in Washington County has had some sort of issue or another. You will hear in detail about a couple of those injection well failures and the damage it has done here tonight. For example, we heard about the Arrowhead Road Services injection well located within 1.25 miles from Little Hawkins water source is another concern. It was recently found by ODNR to have been injecting brine at a dangerously high pressure since it opened in 2022, and this allows the geology to be fractured. ODNR allowed the well to operate based off of faulty step rate tests for over 3 years. This step rate test is a test that tells the operator how high a pressure they can inject safely. Still, to this day, the Arrowhead well is injecting at dangerously high pressures while the issue is being settled in court. What is this doing to the surrounding geology? What damage has already been done? Why does it take ODNR years to manage a reactor problem? We have done the work of gathering this information so that the people can truly understand the reality that injection wells do have problems. Another reason we are concerned about the safety of our water is because of the brine waste getting into oil and gas wells in Washington County. Many producers have told ODNR about their well-being being ruined by waste migration, which renders their wells unusable and full of fluid, not oil and gas. Despite these many documented complaints, ODNR continues to drag its feet by not studying these brine migration issues in the county or in the state in any systemic, long-term, meaningful way. Remember, ODNR has the authority as the regulating body to find and pursue these answers and protect the public and the business owners involved. It's hard to ignore the extent of the problem because ODNR isn't really looking for it. Instead, they continue to permit more injection wells way too close to our drinking water.
According to ODNR's own oil and gas well database, all of Washington County is the pincushion of wells, which we know. And just within a 2-mile radius of the Deep Rock Stephen 1 well, the newest injection well site, the ground is home to 191 oil and gas wells. Put a different way, that's 191 different ways for that brine to possibly escape. Now, we will hear from a couple of oil and gas well owners who have struggled to get help from ODNR. Bev Reed will read Jack Chamberlain's documented oil and gas well story.
Folks, I am here, I'm Jack Chamberlain. Bev has been kind enough to stand in for me because I absolutely suck at public speaking.
Thank you, Jim.
Appreciate it.
So again, my name is Bev Reed. I'm with the Environmental Network, and I'm just going to read a very short summary of Mr. Chamberlain's well story, and then I have a couple more words, and we'll wrap up here soon after the Bob speak, and then we'll go to Q&A after that. So, my name is Jack Chamberlain. I am the primary owner of Old South Oil LLC in Marietta, Ohio. I own and operate 178 oil and gas wells in 4 counties, Washington, Athens, Meigs, and Gallia. I have worked in the oil and gas industry for 46 years. On May 1st, 2019, I purchased some wells in Washington County, Chrismar number 2, 3, 4, and 5, located in Marietta and Warren townships. I had no interest or desire to purchase these 4 wells, as I knew they were dud wells with little to no production, but they were a condition to be able to purchase other wells. So these 4 subject wells sold little to no gas and no oil. The PSI on them never exceeded 40 pounds, and 2 of them, number 3 and number 5, had 0 pressure on them. I would routinely check these wells once every 30 days. On 7/8/2020, the pressures were normal. Upon checking them on 8/14/2020, number 5 had 230 PSI, pounds per square inch. Number 4 had 40 PSI, number 3 had 90 PSI. I immediately realized that my wells had been infiltrated by deep rock disposal. That same day, I contacted ODNR and notified them of the situation. I was contacted later in the afternoon by ODNR out of Zanesville. In the evening, I called Standard Oil of West Virginia, who had wells on the property just west and north of my wells, to let them know what happened to my wells, and to be on the lookout for the same possibility and to keep an eye on his tanks. 11/13/2020, Standard called me to let me know that 6 of his 7 wells had been infiltrated. So that's about 3 months later. And tanks had overrun with brine. The Chrismar number 3 and number 5 wells have been pressurized and free-flowing, unending amounts of brine since 8/15/2020. Again, these had no water on them before. The Chrismar number 5 well is about 1,100 feet from the Deep Rock American Growers number 1 disposal well. And then we brought this map to show you all these various injection wells. And right here is the one we're talking about, the Deep Rock American Growers 1. I'm sorry, right here.
Dee, hold it up.
And then Jack's well is really close to that. You can see that.
That's it. That's it. Somebody hold it up for him.
So, ODNR personnel met with me to collect water samples in 2020 and in 2022 and 2023. I was told that shortly after 8/15/2020, Deep Rock Disposal shut down their primary disposal well behind the offload facility and were pumping water to the 3 original wells along State Route 7 for the Career Center wells. They had shut down this well down here and were using the wells up here. They have a pipeline that goes from there by the river up to the Career Center wells. So they started using those wells because that one had infiltrated his well and other ones in the region. I was told that shortly after 8/15/2020, Deep Rock Disposal, oh yes, I wrote that. So by 11/10/2020, I noticed they had placed a huge workover rig on the primary well along State Route 550. The rig sat on that well for several weeks. I was told that they had sealed off the shallower disposal zones in the well. I was also told they were drilling the well deeper for additional disposal zones. So they had drilled the well deeper because of this issue. So while the disposal well was shut down, pressures on my Chrismar wells had dropped by half. However, since they have resumed using the primary well for disposal, the pressures have again increased in the Chrismar number 3 and number 5 wells. On 5/17/2023, Standard Oil notified me that they had a well over a mile west of the Deep Rock well that was infiltrated by the brine from Deep Rock. It was a well that never made any water, and it ran his tank over with brine. In summer of 2023, directly across from State Route 550 from my Chrismar number 5 well, and directly west of and behind the Deep Rock facility is a Chrismar number 1 well, owner unknown. I noticed several ODNR pickups and a contractor were in and out of that location for 2 to 3 days. I was told that Deep Rock had infiltrated that well and it was flowing brine out of the surface casing, running down the hillside into Mile Run Creek, and no one knew for how long.
I'll make a note here, that was,
3 years after my wells had been infiltrated. A well across 550 blew out and was running brine over the hillside, and they allegedly had sealed off the Ohio Shale zone is what they were injected into at that time, which was a relatively shallow zone. And allegedly they had sealed that off, but the well across the road 3 years later blew out, so it must have found a pass.
Running down the hillside into Mile Run Creek, and no one knew for how long. To this day, there are multiple dead trees standing and down that were killed by the spilled brine. There's also a huge bare soil area around the wellhead. For whatever reason, ODNR was involved with sealing that wellhead off. Since this whole situation began in August of 2020, I have been in regular communication with and sought help from ODNR, members of the Ohio Oil and Gas Association, the Southeast Ohio Oil and Gas Association, and Deep Rock Disposal to resolve this situation. For the most part, I have been ignored, shunned, given the cold shoulder. Everyone seems to want to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to this reality. Early on, I even approached Deep Rock and talked to Brian Chavez directly and simply asked him to plug the Chrismar wells, as I do not have the funds to do it. I was told that my wells were piles of trash, I was not out anything, and they did not owe me anything, and I could go pound sand. I have been told by ODNR, my well's my problem, even though it was another operator who trespassed on my lease and inflicted a hardship and burden onto me that was caused by someone else's activity. This is not fair. I was told off the record that the water sample results clearly indicate the presence of out-of-state foreign water, not typical of the Berea sands. So Jack's story is but one story among many of the brine migration issues in Southeast Ohio. We cannot stress that enough. That is why we started this campaign, because people like Jack showed us his wells, how you turn the valve and the brine shoots into the air under pressure. That's happening multiple places in this county right now. ODNR is not doing enough. They are taking little pressures around certain areas, and that's it. They're not collecting samples. They're not doing a long-term analysis. They're not really getting a comprehensive picture of what's going on. And that's what we're asking for. That's not too much to ask for. And that's why we're pushing so hard for this campaign, because they're not doing their job. They told Susan and Josh here that they don't have the personnel to do this. They have to hire out-of-state people to do it because they don't have the people on their staff, the scientists required to get a handle on this problem. That's literally what they said, right? Okay. So the American Growers #1 injection well is still in operation to this day. ODNR knows this stuff is happening, and yet they continue to permit injection wells in the same vicinity the incidents have happened. Remember Jack's story. Let's continue to push for attention on Washington County and let's hold OD&R and companies accountable when they've done something wrong. I have one more thing to say, and we have two very important speakers, so don't go anywhere. We're going to Columbus tomorrow to deliver the stack of moratoriums and the petition signatures, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But I just want to say, if anybody wants to join us, please do. We're going at 2 o'clock to deliver these to the State House. If you want to go, it's not too late. You can join us. We're going to do a press conference there. And it's very important that as many people come as possible. It's going to be a very important day. Because it's one thing to do this in this room, but it's another thing to go to Columbus and escalate this. Because Southeast Ohio is not their priority. And I'm from Southeast Ohio, so I know this. I work for Buckeye Environmental Network, and just so you all know, there's been a lot of propaganda in the news, so I feel the need to address it while I have the mic. Okay? We're not California-funded billionaires. We're not Saudi or China assets. We're Ohioans. We're Appalachians. We live here. We love this place. I love this place. I love Marietta. We all do. Roxanne Groff's from Athens. She loves this place. That's why we're doing this, okay? It's not to stop the oil and gas industry. We know that can't be stopped, okay? It's about the waste. So that's why we're doing it. So thank you.
Thank you.
The day she visited my well last summer, it's on the Buckeye Environmental website. Take a look at it if you like, for open up and down, demonstrate the programs there. The biggest problem we have is the massing of out state water. Yeah, you know, disposal of water operated safely and correctly, not with unlimited amounts of water. It's got to get somewhere. And you have to allow the water to dissipate and dispose of it slowly. But those pictures you have of Deep Rock, I go by Deep Rock at least twice a day, and that is a typical, what I see is typical picture. Every day in that facility, trucks will be lined up. You mentioned 19 trucks a day. I've measured savers 40 to 50 trucks a day. We don't end up what I've seen. Just get them out.
I just wanted to say that Linda Sheard is here, and she is running against Kevin Ritter, who and she has been in the mix with all of this, and we need someone to show up and be invested in what is happening here, and that is not Kevin Ritter.
Nope.
Another thing, Brian, who is also running for county commissioner, have a stand up, I'm sorry, the last name?
Wayland.
Brian Wayland is also running for county commissioner. Next, we have Bob Wilson. Now, these are the two most important things. You want to hear these. These are really something. And these are the two people that have a lawsuit filed. It's being heard by the Supreme Court. And it's really incredible.
I'm Bob Wilson. I own Wilson Energy LLC. I own approximately 171 gas wells. In fall of 19, some of my wells started acting funny. Put the rig on, they full of water. I told the ODNR and told them I suspected there was disposal water getting on the wells, and they told me it couldn't happen, it's not possible. So, in the meantime, I'm spending $30,000-$40,000 per well on these wells that aren't making any money. And I've done that on 10 wells, so I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to fix these wells. And seemed like every week I was losing 3 or 4 wells, and I'd call them, and sorry about the luck, not possible, can't happen. About 8 months later, after I lost 28 wells, we finally got the ODNR to come out, start testing some wells. And it was probably 8 or 9 months later, they released the results, said that the water was definitely, even though it didn't possibly come from the disposal wells, it was definitely disposal water contaminated my well. Even though it couldn't happen anywhere. Currently, I have about 50 wells out of my 170 that's been affected. These wells don't make me any money. The state thinks I'm gonna plug them someday, it's not gonna happen either, I can tell you that right now. But, I would like to say that the ODNR was originally established to protect our natural resources. What are they thinking? Yeah. And ODNR and state officials, elected or hired, work for us. They work for the taxpaying citizens of this state. They don't work for out-of-state horizontal drillers. And I'm not anti-gas and oil by any means. That's all I've ever done. I've worked there for 50 years. But it's time for the horizontal drillers to take responsibility for their own waste. There's other ways they can figure out something else to do besides dumping it on us. They ruin my business. They ruin my life. This cannot be fixed. And I talk to everybody about this, and people act like they're concerned, but if it doesn't affect people personally, it doesn't seem like it matters. It just rolls off the back and people go on. But everybody needs to stand up and address this, because it's going to affect all of us here one day soon. I'm telling you that. Like I said, I go to work every day and lose money, and I can tell you right now, it's no fun. I don't enjoy it a bit. So I'm living this, and I'm telling you, it's not any place anybody else wants to be. It's a bad situation. Thank you.
I'm told that Stephanie Lang is here. Stephanie? Come on up, just so we can see you. Stephanie Lang is running against Eddie Place.
We don't want him.
Thank you. And she signed our petition, didn't you?
Oh, yes.
Okay, good. Bob Lane, come on up. You're the star of the show.
Come on, Bob.
5 minutes, Bob.
I'm not the star of the show by any stretch. I have great sympathy for Bob Wilson. I doubt that very few people here, and I hope there's none here, who went through what he's went through. Fixing up wells, buying pipe, running it in the wells, paying big money for packers to seal the water off that was coming from disposal wells. Can't hear me?
Good.
Trying to seal off water that he thought he had a casing leak that the fields would stop. Spending all this money, working on weekends, all through the week, only to find out later that it was coming from disposal wells. I have wells in the same vicinity that Bob does that is flooded. I drilled to one of them not too awful long ago on the back of around 400 acres down in that vicinity. Bob has wells on some of it. I got the minerals on others that I bought. And he has a well on my property down there. And, I don't know how high it was still in the air, but my grandson belonged to the Dunham Township Fire Department. They got a call that a tank was running over down there, an oil field tank. Oil's coming out of the water. The lid on it's just a flat up and down. The tank put there to store oil in. He heard about it. He knew it was right next to my farm, which he lives on and farms down here now. He went up there and shut the valve, and the pressure immediately came up to 275 pounds. There is wells drilled all over Washington County, and most of you are aware of all this stuff. But that were never plugged properly, some never plugged. During the war, they pulled the pipe out of them if they weren't producing, shove a pine tree down in them and fill them up maybe the top 100 feet up with dirt. And that's what we're looking at today. These wells down there at the bottom I have that are flooded had pipe run in them that was cemented in them. And the water came from maybe 5,000 feet deep up to 1,800 feet deep. Fill our real wells up to the top, and the one that he closed in had 275 pound one when he immediately shut the back. And if these people think that all the wells in Washington County, there's no state records on probably hundreds of them drilled, no state records. They don't know where they're at. The pipe's been pulled out of them, nothing in them. If they think that kind of pressure is not going to get in those wells and come up and get in our water, they got another thing coming. And a lot of people don't understand how this works. I've drilled probably upwards of 75, maybe a few over wells since 1976. You'd be surprised what you learn when you're out there drilling wells about the formations below the earth. I've had my drilling holes fall 15 feet, just like they went through an open cavity. Maybe you'd be down 1,000, 1,500 feet deep, and your holes would fall. There's stuff below that earth that nobody knows about, and how this water can travel through cracks and crevices. Another thing that disturbs me greatly, and I know this is about our drinking water tonight. So I have two boys that are petroleum engineers. They graduated from Marietta College. One of them is a production superintendent for a large independent out west. They got wells from North Dakota to New Mexico. And he's the production superintendent for the company. And when I told him about the first meeting we had, Bob and I, with the state Division of Oil and Gas chief, him trying to convince us that this water would never come out of zone. It was funny, I wanted to laugh about it. When I came to the city council meeting that they had here about this water, and some people from Marietta College, if I'm not mistaken, geologists said that this water couldn't get out of zone, it couldn't go anywhere. It's a joke to me. My two boys graduated from that place. About our wells being flooded back there, he said, "Dad, do you have earthquake insurance on your house?" Now I know this is foreign to maybe some of you. I said, "No, why?" He said, "Dad, in geology class we studied about a fault parallels the Ohio River on the Marietta side." And he said it runs up over the lakes and clear down through into Meigs and the county on below. Parallels the river. He said all they got to do is drill a well next to that, put a light fracture in it, and strike into that fault line. And he said they'll usually take water on a vacuum. You don't even have to pump it in there. But he said the problem begins when it fills up the fault enough that they got to start pumping the water in. And he said that starts bringing it higher and higher and higher until it comes to the surface. And before that gets in your drinking water. And that really scared me. And so I inquired about earthquake insurance. He said, "Dad, they've had earthquakes all over the United States where there's oil producing going on that have been caused by disposal wells next to fault lines." And so at the meeting at Warren High School, the first meeting, maybe it was the second one, it was asked if anyone considered something to get earthquake insurance on their house. Listen to this one. Several people were there, and I talked to some of them afterwards who went to their insurance company to get earthquake insurance, and they wanted to know where they lived. And if they lived in Washington County, anyways close to these disposal wells, they wouldn't write them in. Fortunately, I got it on my home, of course, this house. It's another serious concern when this water can get in that fault, and it runs so far up and down the Ohio River. And it's already mentioned here tonight about the increase in earthquakes since this started here in this area.
Tell us about the new, real quick, we've got about one more minute. The New Mexico, the guy who came up and had the radioactivity that he found, and put that real close to your lips.
Our attorneys, I'm sorry, our attorneys were responsible for bringing a hydrologist, who I found out later was world-renowned, up here from Albuquerque, New Mexico, to check the water in bottomized wells. I sent my pumper with him that day. I couldn't go myself. They drawed a 3-gallon pail of water out of one of my wells. It's a plastic pail. My pumper went over to fill the pail up. He told him to fill it up. He went over to fill it up, and he said, "No, you get back here." And he made him put rubber gloves on from the tip of his fingers for up his shoulders on the raincoat. He said, "You don't want to get that on you." And my pumper thought the fellow was getting up in years. He probably never be 65 again. He drove the SUV up here with all kinds of water equipment in the back of it from Albuquerque, New Mexico. They got the sample of water out. He got some kind of radiation detector out of his vehicle, brought it over there and pushed some buttons, and the thing started to chatter, pardon my language, but he looked at my pumper after he looked at the radiation detector, and he said, "My God, who's running this state?"
Yeah, there it is.
And my pumper said, "Well, what's the matter?" He said, "This water has 3 times the radiation level in it that you can legally transport on any highway in the United States of America." He said, "I don't know who's running this state." He said, "Do they have radiation placards on these trucks holding this water?" And my pumper told him, "No, none that I've ever seen." He said, "Are these men suited up to haul this in case they get spilled on them?" And he said, "No, most of them I've seen just wear regular work clothes." He said, "If you get enough of this on you, you're going to die of cancer, bone cancer, especially." And he said, "Don't get this on you." And he said, the sad part of it is, he said, no one on planet Earth knows how to take radiation out of water. And that's what prompted me to go to the Warm Water Board and ask them some questions. And I found out they hadn't heard much about this really yet, and explained all this to them. Is when they got involved, and I'm very thankful for those fellows, and got this meeting at Warren High School scheduled, and quite a crowd of people came here. And I want to thank all the people here who've been deeply involved in this, all you water boards and everyone. I got 2 great-grandchildren now under the age of 2 years old, and I look in their face and I wonder sometimes, what are we leaving them? Thank you.
I told you he was a star. All right, we have over 373 signatures on our petitions that will be going tomorrow to Ohio Capitol. So that's pretty good. And although a moratorium is not a permanent solution, it's a responsible risk management. The moratorium allows time to ensure our aquifers are protected before more radioactive brine is injected. To be clear, it cannot be implemented solely by our local leaders. To fully enact the moratorium, we need Governor DeWine and the state legislature to support us and make that happen. We are not willing, as Washington County residents, to risk our drinking water. We call upon Governor DeWine, the Ohio legislature, to stand with us, the city of Marietta, and Washington County water authorities, and townships and villages to protect our drinking water. I think we pretty much are ready for the Q&A, and I don't know exactly, Chase, you might be it. Do you have any questions? That anybody can answer, not just me, trust me.
Yeah, I guess,
Hi. I would like to ask,
I don't know, any of you who would like to answer this question, because it kind of applies to all of you, most of you. You know, the city of Marietta passed the legislation asking for a moratorium back in October, and as it was acknowledged, it's kind of been, you know, like crickets in Columbus since then. Why are you hopeful that things will be different now with all of you coming together?
Why?
Yes.
I had somebody, we were out to dinner, my husband and I at Spagna's one night, and some man came over to me, and I thought, uh-oh, here we go. Because you never know what side people are on. And he said, do you really think this is going to work? And I said, I'm not going to use his name, but I said, what choice do we have? And a lot of times, things have to come from the bottom up, not the top down. Grassroots, people that care, people that stand up and say, we're not having this. And I have to believe that good will prevail. He gave me his business card, and he said, I want to make a large donation. He has a company. And he said, and I thank you for what you're doing. Anybody else want to answer that?
This is the first time in Ohio and maybe in the nation's history that this many water districts have gotten together to fight for our future. And so I think that there is hope in this a sort of groundswell, and we're showing what the community wants. We want safety, and we just have to hope that they listen to us in Columbus. This is the extent of our powers to communicate, and hopefully we get listened to.
And
We have to win.
vote.
We need to vote. We need a clean house. We need to get new people in, county commissioners, and all the things. People that will listen to us, people that have the pulse of what we want, people that will represent us and not be in bed with the oil and gas business. And I'm not against the oil and gas business. My family has been up promote for a long time. But we have to get people to understand that we can't live like this. We don't want this for our future. We don't want this for our children and our grandchildren. We should have a say in this, and we should be listened to.
I'm also curious, you know, I know there's some, you know, Buckeye Environmental has a lawsuit currently ongoing against ODNR. The Washington County for Safe Drinking Water filed some stuff with JLEC that no media action was taken on, but something might be going on in the background. I'm curious if there's any update on any of those things that you guys can share with me.
So, the lawsuit's ongoing, right? I think Keith Rock filed to dismiss the case, and so did ODNR. And the attorneys are kind of going back and forth right now on that. And it's all public information, by the way. Anybody can look it up on the court docket and see the back and forth. But, yeah, we're just going to stay in it, and I'm not sure when it'll be decided upon, but I know that they're in that negotiation phase, so. And then as far as the Brian Chavez complaint, it was dismissed off of the grounds of not being based on personal knowledge. But it was all based on public documents. And, you know, all public documents that a group of people in Washington County researched and found and put together and sent to the ethics committee of the legislative branch. And it's unfortunate that they took that response, but, you know, it's something to pay attention to next time you go to the ballot box. That's all I'm saying. But continue to educate yourselves and your neighbors on what's going on, right? and read the complaint itself. It's on WashingtonCountyForSafeDrinkingWater.org, so you can definitely read the whole thing and 53 exhibits. So yeah.
For the city of Marietta folks, I know, in addition to the moratorium, you guys also, as you talked about, approved like filing a writ of mandamus, taking your own legal action against ODNR. Is Paul Bertram doing anything at the moment?
Yes, the permission from the city council to the law director to file the writ of mandamus was passed via resolution on October 2nd. At that time, the city had a pending oil and gas commission appeal, and that has not been resolved at this point. The city, after that appeal is resolved, could file a writ of mandamus. If the city were to file, they could intervene in the pending writ that is in the Court of Appeals in Columbus. But at this point, we're waiting for the Oil and Gas Commission to set a hearing on the
Good reporter.
And also for Marietta, I'm just curious, is there a reason that you don't have your own like water superintendent here as well tonight, or are you just kind of, as Mayor Mr. Schlicker, are you just kind of here for the whole city and that wasn't necessary, or is there any reason that he is not also here?
Question?
You don't like to pay over. Josh Schlicker, Mayor Marietta, representing the city. So I also represent the water superintendent, Steve Edding, or the water reclamation superintendent, which is Chris Adams, and our new public utilities director, Brian Bowling, used to be our water reclamation and wastewater superintendent. So I represent all of them, represent the city, and this number out here is very interesting because last year, 2025, we processed almost 750 million gallons of water we extracted from the aquifer, treated at our plant, and then distributed out to our customers. And so it's an interesting number that coincides with the number that's also out here, it's 20 grams. So just to give you an update on our plant, we've been highly invested for over the last few years, about $40 million on the new reverse osmosis water treatment. It should come online fourth quarter of 2026 this year. And if everything goes well, we are, I won't say promised, but we're told that it will remove 99% of the contaminants, including PFAS and other contaminants. Yeah, radioactivity, no. And it's also a plant that replaces our 1930s plant, and the new technology is much more expensive, and I think you were talking about the filters in your operation. Very expensive to operate, even on the energy level, we all know what's going on. So we have no choice to pass that expense on to our ratepayers. But it's an investment in our community to have the top of the line ability to filter out everything and distribute that to us.
Invited to come out to Putnam Water Plant and put it out of reverse.
Yeah, we did do that before, yeah. Appreciate that. And then, yes, we will have an open house
like Marietta City Council people to stand up here. Marietta City Council, Harvey Nolan. Two.
That's that. Three.
Well, see, you can't vote. Nancy.
Some tiebreaker, sometimes. Betsy Cook with Living Democracy, Engaging Citizens. I am sorry to see that we don't have any county commissioners here, except for the wonderful candidates that are county commissioners to each of our Living Democracy meetings through the last 6 or 8 months, and no one has ever shown up. They're not with us.
They're not representing us, so we know who they're
Yeah.
representing.
Thank you, Betsy. I have a question from Gwen Sauer, the Marietta Times. She wasn't able to make it because she has the flu right now, but she is attending on Zoom. What is the hope for response from bringing the documentation to Columbus tomorrow? What would be the ideal response from legislators? Who would like to answer that?
Moratorium resolutions ask for total things, including stopping their permitting of all new injection wells in Washington County for a period of 3 years. We'd like legislation brought forward to do that. That same legislation should also stop the importing of out-of-state waste for injection in Washington County for a period of 3 years. It should stop current injection of waste within 6 miles of Marietta's aquifer. And the legislation should also require a full study of brine migration within Washington County and finance that through ODNR. So we would like that brought forward either through the House of Representatives or the Senate and voted on and ultimately signed by the governor. That's how we solve this problem.
I just wanted to mention too, that Senate Bill 219 is really important because in that bill that was recently passed out of the Senate, Brian Chavez chairs the Senate Energy Committee, and he pushed this bill through. What it would do is bring money back into counties where injection wells exist. In the complaint, it's labeled as a bribe for counties to take this injection waste, right? And it's a pittance, honestly. It's not very much money at all, so it's not worth it by any stretch. So I just want to let you all know that. And again, that's in the complaint. You can read about that and many, many other things having to do with that situation. So, I think that's it as far as questions from the Zoom. We had 5 or 6 other reporters, regional and statewide reporters attend. So we'll be tracking the media coverage we get from this event. We have signs for sale if you want a yard sign on the way out. And definitely call your legislators. And I know he can wrap this up, but I just want to say call your legislators and please don't leave this room and not do anything more. We really need to keep the pressure on. So enjoy us tomorrow in Columbus.
One more thing about Bill 219 that Chavez ushered through. The money that comes back to the county commissioners takes away money for environmental cleanups. So if you have county commissioners who are not in line with the thought of clean water, that's a problem. So it's not a good bill, in my opinion. I think if anybody wants to join in a picture after this, please come up front and we will take a picture right afterwards. And I want to thank you all for attending. You've been really wonderful. We were worried people would dribble and drabble out, but this is a concerning issue, and I think our speakers spoke well to this issue. Thank you for coming, and remember, this is our land. Yes, that's right.